Here you will learn about the strangest technologies from the distant past. Have a seat, it will be very interesting. The photo shows one of the first prototypes of a bulletproof vest, created during the First World War in 1917. It consisted of metal plates connected by movable elements, and was designed to protect soldiers from shrapnel and bullets. The device looked almost fantastic. Protective glasses, helmet, and segmented armor gave the soldier the appearance of a human robot. The photo shows a unique experiment from the 1950s, a racing motorcycle with an aerodynamic sidecar, in which the navigator lay literally face forward, just a few centimeters from the road. This design was used in sidecar motorcycle racing, where aerodynamics and balance were of maximum importance. The recumbent navigator is not just a passenger, but an active participant. He shifted his body weight on turns in order to maintain stability at high speed. The image shows an electric scalp massager from the middle of the 20th century, equipped with 4 vibrating discs and 480 artificial fingers. This device promised not only a relaxing massage, but also stimulation of brain cells, improved blood circulation, and dandruff relief. The design looked like science fiction, something between a mad professor's hat and a mind-reading device. In those years, the belief in the power of electricity and vibration was so strong that such devices were actively advertised as a remedy for almost all problems. Despite its strange appearance, it was the prototype of modern massagers, and at one time it was considered the pinnacle of consumer electronics. Here is a rare experimental car from 1924, equipped with a special pedestrian shovel, a protective shield installed in front of the radiator. His task was simple. When hitting a person, the device was supposed to pick up the victim and soften the impact, preventing them from getting under the wheels. It was a desperate response by engineers to the sharp increase in the number of accidents involving pedestrians in the era of the rapid development of cars. The design looked strange, but then it was considered a progressive safety measure. Subsequently, the idea was transformed into modern bumpers and active pedestrian protection systems. The photo shows a 1936 invention called the dimple maker, a device for creating dimples on cheeks, a fashionable sign of female attractiveness at that time. It consisted of a metal structure with clamps that pressed on certain points of the face, supposedly forming desired indentations over time. Manufacturers claimed that with regular wear, you can train your face for permanent dimples. Despite its dubious effectiveness and inconvenience, the device was marketed as a non-surgical alternative to natural beauty. This is an example of how far the beauty industry could go to match fashion. Here is the legendary egg cuber, a device that turns an ordinary boiled egg into a square one. Invented in the middle of the 20th century, it has become a cult example of a useless but fun kitchen gadget. The principle of operation is simple. A warm peeled egg is placed inside, the lid is screwed on, and under pressure it takes the shape of a cube. It didn't make it any tastier, but it certainly caused surprise at breakfast. Egg cuber has become a symbol of an era when the shape of food began to be no less important than its taste. This dialyse is a vintage attachment to the holes of a telephone disc, designed to protect nails when dialing numbers on the metal ring of old disc phones. The device consisted of plastic orbit pads that were inserted into each digit and protected the fingers from scuffing and friction. The manufacturers promised, "It's easier to type, looks beautiful and quickly navigates the room, it's just a functional decorative detail." For 50 cents, it was advertised as "Pamper your dialing finger, pamper your paying finger." This is a sweet reminder of how everyday details once turned an ordinary phone into an object of concern for comfort. This bookwheel is an ingenious invention of the 16th to 17th centuries, which is still kept in the library of Palafoxiana, Puebla, Mexico. It allowed the researcher to keep up to 7 huge volumes open at the same time by simply turning the wheel, an effective analog of the set of tabs in the era of manuscripts. The principle of operation is based on a masterfully thought-out gear system. When rotating, a large wooden basket turns, and each shelf remains strictly horizontal, regardless of the position of the wheel. The idea dates back to the engineer Agostino Ramelli, 1588, and became rare, but very practical in large libraries of the 17th to 18th centuries. Today, the bookwheel is a unique museum exhibit, a rare example of a mechanical information system that provided insight into interface design before the digital age. This is the so-called Old Gentleman of Rahi, the oldest surviving diving suit, created in the 18th century and now kept in the Rahi Museum, Finland. It is made of calfskin, stitched with wax thread and sealed with a mixture of lard, tar, and resin to hold water. The helmet hood was reinforced with a wooden frame, and air was supplied through wooden tubes from the surface, with a valve for exhaust air outlet. The diver climbed inside through the front opening, which was then tightened with a leather belt on his belt. This suit is a unique transitional stage from diving in a bell to a heavy suit with a metal helmet. For all its naivety, it really allowed you to inspect the bottom of ships in a harbor. Today, the Old Gentleman is not just a museum piece, but a witness to the engineering audacity and practical courage of early divers. Here is the inside of an old mechanical calculator, a real mechanical poetry in metal. This device allowed addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division to be performed without a single electrical signal. Each push and turn triggered a complex chain of levers, gears, and drums that transmitted numbers and commands with absolute precision. Such machines were used by accountants, engineers, and scientists in the first half of the 20th century. Their mechanical memory could store intermediate results, and the accuracy rivaled the first electronic counterparts. Here is the punt gun, a giant double-barreled hunting shotgun developed in the 19th and early 20th centuries for commercial shooting of waterfowl. This weapon is too massive to hold it manually. Aiming was carried out from the bow of a flat-bottomed boat, punta, mounted with a cannon. One shot, and a volley of shot weighing up to 0.5 kilograms was cut down, capable of killing 50 to 100 ducks or geese at once. The power of the punt gun rivaled artillery. The recoil was such that the boat bounced back, and the shot sounded like a disaster. Commercial hunters often hunted with fleets of boats, shooting at flocks at the same time and practically exterminating entire populations of birds. Only after that bans and laws on the protection of migratory species began. The punt gun is a rare museum artifact, but enthusiasts and collectors sometimes hold demonstration shots, preserving the memory of a time when a man could devastate a pack with a single pull of the trigger. Its construction is a powerful testimony to industrial hunting and the era's attitude to nature. This is Vissomatic, the first ever long-distance store, launched in 1950 by the Canadian department store A.J. Fryman in Pembroke. Inside, there were cozy booths with screens displaying goods ranging from shoes to household appliances. Customers scrolled through the catalog using buttons and recorded the selected items, sending the order directly to the head store via teletype. The system provided access to thousands of goods without having to travel to a major city. However, due to expensive logistics and lack of mass demand, the project has not been widely adopted. Nevertheless, Vissomatic became the true ancestor of online shopping, embodying the idea of remote shopping long before the advent of computers. It was the Amazon of its time, only on buttons and paper. This is the Sea Shadow 9529, an experimental stealth vessel based on a twin-hull swath design, small waterplane area twin hull, created by Lockheed Martin in the mid-1980s by order of the U.S. Navy. The aim of the project is to test the possibilities of reducing visibility on radar and in the acoustic field for ships, as was done with stealth aircraft such as the F-117. The vessel was built in secret, hidden inside the Hughes mining barge floating dock, and was first launched in 1985, and a wide demonstration took place only in 1993. The angular hull, covered with a special material, and underwater pontoons provided stability in rough seas and a minimal reflective surface for radars. Although Sea Shadow never went into production, its technological developments formed the basis for the design of modern stealth ships, including Zumwalt-class destroyers. To this day, it is a unique monument of engineering thought, when secret experiments create the appearance of the future of warships. Here is the Obista 305/17DS, a giant Italian siege howitzer on a special De Stefano cart, captured by the Austro-Hungarians during the breakthrough at Caporetto in November 1917. It's not just artillery, it's a destructive monster. The 305mm caliber allowed shells to fall dozens of kilometers, destroying fortifications and buildings. The Da Stefano trolley had a unique design with 4 huge wheels and an inclined return system. After the shot was fired, the platform rolled down the guide, dampened the recoil, and then returned to its original position, without having to dig a position. Special tractors and engineering teams were required for transportation, but the installation could rotate 360 degrees, providing flexible firing. Such guns were used pointwise, but the effect of their use was enormous. This is the first computer mouse in history, developed by Douglas Carl Engelbart in 1964. It was a massive wooden box with 2 metal wheels and 1 red button on top, capable of moving the cursor around the screen, searching by X and Y coordinates. The device was part of the NLS system, a set of innovations for human-computer interaction demonstrated in the legendary Mother of All Demos in 1968. The mouse literally looked like an experimental mechanic, made of wood with wheels, and it was Engelbart who took advantage of its capabilities for the first time. It became the prototype of all subsequent mice and a symbol of a new era in personal computers, which was continued by Xerox, Apple, and Microsoft. Here is Iteravto Interato, the world's first car navigation system created by an Italian touring club in the early 1930s. The device was a mechanical GPS on paper. A roll of the map passed through a window on the dashboard, and its movement was automatically synchronized with the speed of the car, thanks to the connection to the speedometer. During the trip, the map scrolled forward, showing the current position and the nearest landmarks, bridges, intersections, gas stations, the forerunner of modern navigators. But if the driver turned off the wrong route, they had to manually change the map. The route continued as a new ribbon. Iteravto has shown that the idea of personal navigation is real long before electronics, thanks to a simple mechanical solution. Such an analog of the Auto Peep Boy was a logical, but very limited forerunner of the era of digital GPS. However, its creation is an amazing example of the engineering ingenuity of the early 20th century. The photo shows a giant tricycle built by the Boston Woven Hose and Rubber Company in 1896. This car was not so much a vehicle as an advertising stunt designed to promote the company's products, namely, bicycle tires. The size of the wheels is amazing. Their diameter reached about 3 meters, and each took more than 150 meters of rubber hose. The bike was powered by the efforts of several people at once and could move slowly down the street, making an indelible impression on the crowd. In the era before TV and the internet, such engineering curiosities were powerful marketing tools that could literally stop traffic and attract thousands of eyes to a brand. This colossal device has become a living illustration of the company's motto, to show that their products are durable, massive, and trustworthy. Here is a Victorian multifunctional cane, or otherwise system cane, a real demonstration of engineering ingenuity of the late 19th century. Inside such a cane were hidden mini-gadgets, tiny compasses, canteens, whistles, small lanterns, even smoking accessories or writing materials. It was the gentlemanly Swiss Army knife of its time, a noble accessory on the outside, but turn the handle and you'll discover a whole arsenal of hidden pieces. The Victorian era idolized such secret solutions, combining fashion, culture, and necessity. The cane in the picture is most likely one of the rare examples where the trellis-shaped top turns into an umbrella, a musical instrument, or even the arm of an armchair. It all depends on the design. To find it in vintage collections is a real treasure, because such canes are now in fashion. They are exhibited in museums and collected. The water tripod for hunting is an exotic device popular in the Victorian era among fans of unusual entertainment and experimenters. This is a swimming device assembled from 3 massive barrels or floats connected by a frame on which a board was put on. The hunter stood on top, keeping his balance, and could move slowly through the water using long poles or his own weapon to incite ducks to hunt, and not just shoot on the shore. The bug floats provided stability and buoyancy, but required caution when moving so as not to crash into the reeds and disturb the silence. This design combined elements of water skis, a catamaran, and a hunting platform, and the inventors of those times loved such mechanisms for their theatricality and high visual effect. 3 huge barrels with a man on top, a picture that could not go unnoticed. This automated cradle is an invention of the early 20th century, known as the spring swing pendulum, or the automatic Jones cradle. It worked on the principle of a clockwork mechanism. You had to lift a pendulum or a load by winding the mechanism, and it rocked the cradle for up to 2 hours in a row, completely independently. The oscillation of the pendulum maintained a constant rhythm, and the mechanism released it with a push, just like in the anchor escapement of an ordinary watch. The cradle was suspended from chains or suspensions, and the arc motor gently rocked the baby until the stopper was triggered or until it was necessary to restart the mechanics. The photo shows a unique sealed capsule created during the Second World War specifically for Winston Churchill. In those years, sealed compartments in airplanes were still a rarity, and long-distance flights, especially at altitudes, required reliable protection from sudden pressure drops and lack of oxygen. Churchill, as head of government, often traveled by air, and for his safety, an individual capsule was developed that could maintain normal pressure, temperature, and oxygen supply even in unpressurized bombers. The image shows one of the most unusual household appliances of the mid-20th century, an electric roller iron invented by Heinrich Hochkamp. This device was conceived as an alternative to a traditional ironing iron, and really stood out for its futuristic look and principle of operation. Unlike a conventional flat-soled iron, this device consisted of a metal cylinder with a heating element inside. Solutions like the Bradley shower poles, which are popular in the United States and can be seen in locker rooms, gyms, and camps in the 50s and 60s. A column with several nozzles on top allowed several people to shower at the same time, a cool idea to save water and space, and it also became part of the culture of collective bathing rituals of that time. Judging by the promotional image, Bradley group showers was promoted as a way to save water and money. The central column was equipped with directional taps, and the idea was for 4 or 5 people to stand around it and take a shower at the same time, saving on the installation of many individual cabins. Advertising materials from those years depicted joyful general users, which creates a sense of not just a practical, but also a socially useful design. This device is one of the first attempts to create a compact alternative to a traditional book. In 1922, American Rear Admiral Bradley Allen Fiske introduced a mechanical tape reader, a simple but ingenious invention that made it possible to read long texts from paper strips by scrolling through them manually. The tapes were inserted into a frame with a magnifying glass and moved using a manual mechanism. Up to 10,000 words could be placed on one side of the tape, and up to 20,000 on 2 sides. A full-fledged novel, such as H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, could fit on 5 such tapes, which gave a total volume of up to 100,000 words. This image shows a rare invention from the 1930s, an automatic pressure cooker powered by car exhaust. It was attached to the back of the car and used the heat of the engine exhaust system to cook food right on the road. While the car was driving, the exhaust fumes passed through a heat exchanger inside the device and heated the food, like a thermos, but with a cooking function. The device made it possible to prepare full-fledged meals by the time they arrived at the picnic site, without spending fuel separately. The solution was practical, but quickly came to naught due to the toxicity of exhaust gases and increasing safety requirements. The photo shows an American soldier with a Bell rocket belt, presented in 1961. It was a real flying satchel developed by Bell Aerosystems for the U.S. Army. The device was powered by hydrogen peroxide, which, upon contact with a catalyst, instantly turned into steam and was ejected through the nozzles, creating thrust. The flight lasted only up to 21 seconds and allowed to overcome up to 120 meters at an altitude of up to 20 meters. Despite its futuristic nature and successful demonstrations, the belt proved to be too noisy, expensive and limited in range for military use. The project was closed, but it became an icon of engineering experiments during the Cold War. The photo shows a rare and curious device called the yodeling meter, 1925. It was used to measure the strength and purity of yodeling, a specific vocal technique with sharp transitions between the chest and falsetto voices, popular in alpine folk music. The photo shows an eccentric invention from 1954, a mouthpiece with a rain umbrella, created by an English clown for smoking in any weather. The device consisted of an elongated mouthpiece with a miniature umbrella on top, which protected the cigarette from rain, as well as a moisture wicking tube. Although it was most likely intended as a circus trick, it really solved the problem of getting cigarettes wet in humid climates. This is an example of how even absurd-looking ideas can be functional, albeit with a touch of British humor. In the early 1920s, radio strollers appeared in the United States, ordinary baby strollers equipped with a radio receiver, a loudspeaker and an antenna. It was assumed that music and broadcasts would help calm the child during a walk. It was a symbol of the technological progress of the era, but due to its bulkiness and high price, the idea did not catch on. The photo shows a young girl riding a rare McCoy Sportster motorized scooter, one of the first commercially available motor scooters in the United States, released around 1949. The McCoy Sportster was a hybrid of a skateboard and a scooter with a small gasoline engine. The device had a metal platform, 4 wheels and a steering wheel with a tank and controls. It was designed for one person and could reach speeds of up to 20 to 25 km/h, which in the post-war period was considered quite impressive for personal transport. In the photo, you can see a classic car cigarette lighter, a cylindrical heating element that was inserted into the instrument panel and turned red in a matter of seconds due to an electric current. The first models began to appear in production cars in the United States in 1925-26, although in luxury cars such as the Lincoln L 1920, they were already used with a retractable cord cassette. Initially, the heating module was pulled out of the socket manually. It burned red, and it was brought to a cigarette. Later, in 1956, an automatic cassette element from Casco with a V-shaped spiral appeared, which automatically popped out when it was ready. This cigarette lighter was the first mass-market automotive option, even before the radio and air conditioner, and remained a common accessory until the 1990s, after which it gave way to 12-volt sockets for gadgets. The photo shows one of the early prototypes of an amphibious car from 1952, probably created by German enthusiast Karl Bayer. The combination of an automobile chassis and a sealed hull allowed the structure to float and ride on land. These were the first attempts to give the driver the freedom to move without delay between the road and the water. The concept was revolutionary. A fixed steering wheel for overland driving and a recessed, sealed boat-like body shape provided buoyancy. It was necessary to transfer the car to the water manually, and to go ashore without stopping. Unlike the later mass-produced VW Schwimmwagen, a military amphibious vehicle created by Porsche, these early models were more of an experimental technique of family or amateur origin. The provided photos show the famous British hypnotist Henry Blyth and his daughter Sally, 17 years old, around January 1960 in Torquay, England. Henry applied hypnosis before her first driving lesson, after which a warning appeared on the car: "Caution, hypnotized driver, they say, a hypnotized student is driving." Blyth claimed that he used hypnosis to reduce school fears and increase confidence while driving. According to him, he has already helped 48 middle school students successfully pass their law exams. The experiment was designed as a media event, an agreement with photographers, and specially made large signs with inscriptions to warn other drivers about an unusual lesson. The hypnotic session itself looked like this. Henry carefully guided his daughter's attention, as if telling a fairy tale, inspiring calmness and concentration. Then she got behind the wheel, and, as they say, coped with the excitement much more confidently. Although such methods have aroused interest in the press, there are few reproducible cases of hypnosis before driving. No practical driving school has adopted this approach. The photo shows a unique military development, a shovel shield, used at the beginning of the 20th century, in particular during the First World War. It is a hybrid of an ordinary sapper shovel and an armored shield, designed for digging trenches under fire. A special through hole was made in the central part of the shovel, allowing you to observe the enemy without exposing your head. The shovel was made of thickened hardened steel and could withstand a bullet or splinter from a certain distance. It was used by assault sappers and intelligence officers who had to work in no man's land. One end dug into the ground, forming an inclined protective wall behind which one could hide. Despite its apparent simplicity, such a device turned out to be inconvenient to use. Its weight, dimensions, and limited field of view made it ineffective in dynamic combat. Therefore, the shovel shield remained a rarity and eventually gave way to lighter and more functional field shields and helmets. In the late 1940s, Spanish teacher Angela Ruiz Robles created a unique invention, a mechanical encyclopedia, which today is rightfully considered the forerunner of the electronic book. Her device was a suitcase with a system of rotating drums on which educational materials were placed. Texts, maps, formulas, and diagrams. The user could scroll through the desired pages manually, stopping them in front of the illuminated magnifying glass for easier reading in the dark. The device also included interactive elements, removable cartridges with various objects, built-in mini-calculators, and even sound modules that allow you to perceive the material by ear. The entire structure has been thought out to the smallest detail, from removable tapes to a lightweight metal case designed to replace bulky school textbooks. Angela's main goal was simple: to make life easier for children by getting rid of heavy backpacks, and to make learning more visual and accessible. In 1949, she filed a patent for her invention, and in 1962 she presented a modified version. Despite recognition at exhibitions and medals, mass production was never launched due to bureaucracy and lack of funding. Nevertheless, the Mechanical Encyclopedia by Angela Ruiz Robles has forever gone down in history as a genius ahead of its time and an inspiring example of engineering born out of love for children and education. Here is a classic board game from the middle of the 20th century called Magnetic Fish Pond, made in England. This toy was designed for children and offered a simple but fun way to go fishing right at home. The essence of the game was that the players used small fishing rods with magnets at the ends to catch fish, also equipped with metal elements. All the fishing took place on an illustrated playing field depicting a pond with various types of fish. The children competed to see who could catch as many fish as possible faster and more accurately. The game developed coordination, attention, and fine motor skills, as well as the joy of team fun. The fishing rods were made of light sticks with a thread and a magnet, and the fish themselves were made of cardboard or light plastic with metal inserts. Magnetic Fish Pond is not just a game, but part of the atmosphere of a time when toys were mechanical, tactile, and designed for live communication. She was popular in families and children's institutions, especially in England and the countries of the British Commonwealth. The photo shows unique reconnaissance pigeons with miniature cameras used in the early 20th century. This is not a fantasy, but a real project created by the German pharmacist and inventor Julius Neubronner in 1907. He developed a lightweight automatic camera that could be attached to a carrier pigeon's chest with a special strap. The camera was equipped with a clock mechanism that took pictures at a certain interval during the flight. The idea was to use birds as live surveillance drones. The pigeons took to the air and took panoramas of the area from a height, then returning to the base with the film removed. Due to the natural route and the low weight of the camera, the birds could fly around the territories in the combat zone without attracting the attention of the enemy. The technology turned out to be especially relevant during the First World War, although it was not widely used in the army. The technology was too complex for mass production, and pigeons were difficult to control over long distances. Nevertheless, Neubronner's cameras have become a sensation at exhibitions, and his aerial photographs are a unique historical legacy. These were some of the first aerial photographs in history taken not from airships or airplanes, but with the help of birds. Today, pigeons with cameras are considered a symbol of early intelligence technology and the unusual fusion of nature and engineering. The photo shows a rare moment from the early 1960s. The car has one of the world's first car vinyl record players, the forerunner of modern tape recorders. This device made it possible to play 45 RPM records right while driving, turning the car into a mobile music area. The turntable shown in the picture probably refers to the highway hi-fi model developed by CBS and installed in Chrysler cars in the mid-1950s, or the later Auto Victrola device. The vinyl was inserted horizontally onto the dashboard, the needle was fixed with a special clamp, and the system itself was maximally cushioned to avoid jumps and jams when driving on uneven roads. Despite its technological audacity, the idea of a turntable in a car quickly lost popularity. The records were scratched, the sound bounced on bumps, and the device itself was bulky. However, it has become a true symbol of luxury and style, especially among celebrities and musicians. The image shows one of the most fantastic and at the same time naive prototypes of personal multimedia devices of the 1960s, television glasses. In 1963, engineering enthusiasm gave birth to a device that was worn directly on the head, resembling bulky glasses with two antennas. Inside the glasses was a miniature cathode ray display, an analog of a tiny TV, which allowed you to watch TV shows right in front of your eyes without looking up from everyday activities. The idea was to create a personal TV receiver. A person could put on glasses and enjoy the image without disturbing others. The antennas picked up the on-air signal, and the built-in electronics transformed it into a picture on a small screen placed at eye level. Such an invention was perceived as an image of the future, where television would become part of personal space. However, in practice, the technology turned out to be cumbersome and inconvenient. The device was heavy, limited visibility, required a stable signal, and quickly overheated. The project did not achieve commercial success, but remained in history as one of the first prototypes of modern VR headsets and personal displays. The photo shows a radio-type device, which in the middle of the 20th century was one of the first means of receiving news in automatic mode right at home. This device received text radio signals coming over the airwaves and printed them on a continuous paper tape. The information, as a rule, came from news services and included summaries, bulletins, stock market data, and emergency messages. The principle of operation was simple. Inside the device there was a radio receiver synchronized with a teletype mechanism. As soon as the radio station started transmitting text, the device automatically started printing it on a narrow paper tape, which slowly came out. The user could read the news almost in real time, without turning on the radio or TV. The radio type was considered a technological miracle. It combined the possibilities of radio broadcasting with the convenience of printed information. The device was especially appreciated in homes where there was no access to the latest newspapers, as well as among those who wanted to receive news faster than it reached kiosks. Despite its bulkiness and limited functionality, the radio type became a harbinger of the information age, where news does not arrive by mail, but directly into the house, and not with a delay, but instantly. The image shows a unique Soviet project from the Second World War, the A-40 flying tank, also known as the Okatov wing tank. It was an experiment to turn a light tank into a glider capable of landing from the air directly into a combat zone. The project was developed in 1942 under the supervision of engineer Oleg Antonov. The design was based on the T-60 light tank, to which huge wooden two-bladed wings and tail were attached, turning it into a biplane. It was planned that the tank would be towed in the air by a heavy aircraft, for example, TB-3, and then dropped near the front line. After landing, the tank dropped its wings and could immediately engage in battle. The only test flight took place in 1942. The towing was difficult. Even without ammunition and equipment, the carrier aircraft could hardly keep the tank in the air. As a result, the towing aircraft was forced to drop the A-40 ahead of schedule. The tank planned and landed successfully, but the project was deemed impractical due to insufficient thrust and overloading on aircraft. The development was frozen, and the idea was recognized as avant-garde, but premature. The A-40 has remained in history as a daring example of engineering imagination and desperate ingenuity. Although it never entered the series, the very fact of its existence proves what experiments the designers went to for the sake of victory, even if it meant teaching the tank to fly. The photo shows one of the first examples in history of an attempt to create a flying bike. This unusual device appeared at the beginning of the 20th century, in the era of technical romance and engineering experiments, when humanity was just beginning to explore the air. The design was an ordinary bicycle, to which two large wings made of fabric and lightweight frame materials were attached. The creator of this invention is a French engineer enthusiast, inspired by the flight of birds and the dream of a personal aircraft accessible to everyone. He believed that if you gave the bike enough speed, the wings could create lift, and the bike would lift off the ground at least for a short while. The experiment was conducted in a stadium, in the presence of an audience and a sports team, which underlines the seriousness of the attempt. Despite the enthusiasm, the device never took off. But such projects have played an important role in the history of aviation. They have shaped the culture of engineering research, laying the foundations for future developments in the field of light aircraft and gyroplanes. The image shows an unusual smoking device from the beginning of the 20th century, designed for simultaneous smoking of two cigarettes. It was a kind of mouthpiece with two channels into which cigarettes were inserted, allowing the smoker to take a puff from both at once. Such devices were not widespread and were used mainly for the sake of outrage, shock effect, or status demonstration. Smoking two cigarettes at the same time was perceived as an audacious, even defiant gesture. It was practiced in secular salons, on cabaret stages, or surrounded by bohemians. It was often part of the theatrical image, a way to attract attention or emphasize one's eccentricity. From a practical point of view, such smoking had no advantages. The smoke became thicker, the throat became irritated, and the taste was too saturated. Imperol Soria is an absurd but real invention of the 19th century, which combined the features of a train, a carriage, and a treadmill. It was a rail carriage that was supposed to be powered by horses running inside the structure. The idea was to eliminate traction from the outside. Instead, the animals were placed inside the enclosure, where they walked on a special rotating platform, similar to a giant treadmill. Their movement turned the mechanism, which in turn rolled the cart along the rails. The creators of this car in a car hoped to combine the comfort of a railway carriage with the autonomy of a carriage without a steam locomotive. But in practice, everything turned out to be a failure. The design was cumbersome, the horses quickly tired, and the efficiency turned out to be negligible. This image shows one of the most absurd and dangerous traps in history, a mousetrap revolver. This is not a metaphor. This is a real invention, which is a wooden box with a real revolver fixed inside, pointing towards the supposed mouse trail. The principle of operation was simple. The mouse, climbing inside, activated the trigger mechanism that pulled the trigger. A loud shot eliminated the pest, along with half of the furniture, the wall, and in some cases, the owner's hearing. This rodent catcher appeared at the end of the 19th century and was allegedly marketed as an innovative solution to the problem of mice in barns. The creators appealed to accuracy and reliability. They say ordinary mousetraps leave a chance for survival, but here, 100% result. However, in practice, everything was not so rosy. The shot often caused fires, holes in the floor, and injuries to pets or even people. This construction became especially dangerous at night, when someone could accidentally step on the descent. The image shows the so-called Siamese dancing shoes, one of the most absurd and surreal inventions in the history of fashion and stage performance. This is a pair of shoes sewn together side by side. One person's right shoe is connected to the other's left. In other words, two people insert one leg into a common pair and are forced to move as a single being. The image shows an 18th century manual dredger, also known as a manual dredger or bugger machine. This is a unique engineering invention of its time, designed to deepen riverbeds and clear channels of silt and sediment, manually without steam or fuel, using only muscular strength. The structure is a platform mounted on a barge, where 6 people drive a complex system of chains and gears. The main element of the machine is 2 giant vertical wheels, each equipped with a series of buckets. People turned cranks or pedals, setting these wheels in motion. Buckets scooped silt from the bottom and lifted it up. After that, the mud and clay were dumped into special gutters or boats. The photo shows a butter protector, or a protective device for butter. This is one of the most eccentric and at the same time charming inventions of the mid-20th century. It is a lightweight plastic dome with legs designed for a single purpose, to protect a piece of butter from uninvited hands and annoying flies. It is designed in the form of a spider-like structure. With a light pressure from above, the legs rise, giving access to the oil, and then lower again, covering it. In the center is a spring mechanism or a simple hinge system that is triggered by touch. The photo shows one of the most curious inventions of the mid-20th century called the donut dunker, or donut dipper. This is a mechanical device designed for a single, but according to the author, vital task, to gently dip a donut into coffee, without using your hands. The design consists of a lever with a clip in which the donut is placed. When you turn the handle, the device tilts the donut in an arc, immersing it in the cup, and then returns it back to your mouth. All this is happening with such theatrical seriousness, as if we are talking about medical technology, and not about a sweet bun. The image shows a drawing of an ice sailing vessel of the 17th century, created by inventor A. Terrier on January 17, 1600. This unusual vehicle was a direct response to the climatic conditions of the time, a period known as the Little Ice Age, when Europe suffered from prolonged, severe and abnormally cold winters. Rivers and lakes froze for months, turning from waterways into ice barriers. This created the need for a new way of moving goods. The ice ship was a hybrid of a boat and a sled with a sharp nose and sailing rigging. It was mounted on metal runners that slid over the frozen surface. The sail caught the wind, turning the icy surface into a kind of highway. The design made it possible to move loads faster and with less effort than in the snow on carts. One of the most ingenious and practically significant projects of the 16th century, a windmill for draining marshes, designed by engineer C.D. Mice in 1589. This design was an early solution to combat waterlogged land, a real problem in the Netherlands and northern Germany, where vast areas were unsuitable for agriculture due to swamps and stagnant water. The mill was powered by wind energy transmitted through a long shaft from the rotor to a water wheel or a screw mechanism that bailed water out of the channel and dumped it into a higher drainage level. Thus, excess water moved from low-lying areas upwards, towards rivers, lakes or specially created drainage channels. I tried very hard. Please subscribe.